everyone, I hope all is well. Today we will be looking at social judgment theory and how we can apply it to our own lives. Social judgment theory is defined as the perception and evaluation of an idea by comparing it with current attitudes. It was developed by Muzafer Sarif in 1961 based off of several experiments that studied the mental assessment of physical objects. Through these experiments and experiences, we have anchored positions on issues. And the first stage of the theory is judging how close or far ideas are from our anchored position. Then we decide if we actually want to shift the anchor in response to the new idea. And once we have judged that new idea according to the anchor, we may or may not adjust our attitude to accommodate that input. So, there are 4 tenets to social judgment theory. The first is latitudes, which include acceptance, rejection, and non-commitment, and they are the range of ideas that we either accept, reject, or have no opinion on. Ego involvement is the importance or centrality of an issue to a person's life. And then contrast and assimilation, they are perceptual errors that deal with where one's anchor point is placed on a topic. And then finally, we have the boomerang effect, which means one attitude changes in the opposite direction of what the message actually advocates for.
The latitude of acceptance is the range of ideas that a person sees as reasonable or worthy of consideration.
Hey Eric. Did you hear that Braswell's is letting in everyone 18 and up tonight? They never do that. This will be the first time ever we can go since we are not 21.
No way, that's awesome. We need to let all the other freshmen know so they can check it out as well.
I overheard you all talking about Braswell's. I totally accept the idea that they are letting in 18-year-olds. Let's for sure go tonight.
Latitude of rejection, the range of ideas that a person sees as unreasonable or objectionable.
Hey man. Did you hear Braswell's is letting in 18-year-olds tonight? I don't want to be there with all those young kids.
What? That's so annoying. I really reject the idea that Braswell's is doing that. Let's go to Dixie's instead because immature 18-year-olds can't go there.
Latitude of non-commitment, the range of ideas that a person sees as neither acceptable nor objectionable.
I just got off the phone with my little sister, Kelly. She's super excited that Braswell's is letting in 18-year-olds tonight. Remember when we used to go there in college?
Oh, that's cool. It doesn't really matter to me though, because we never go there.
Yeah, I wish Braswell's had done that when we were 18. But since we're over age and never go to that bar, I guess it doesn't really affect us.
You're right, it doesn't. I'm not committed to going to Braswell's anymore anyways. It is a really college-type bar. Do you guys want to go inside and get something to eat?
So, there are several ways that social judgment theory has been applied to different studies. The first one we're going to look at attempts to link source credibility to latitudes of acceptance, rejection, and non-commitment. The experiment focused on participants reading articles, researching the author, creating an opinion on the author's source credibility, and then forming a latitude based on that opinion. And then they also completed 2 different surveys to share the results. And it suggested that participants who found a low source credibility also interpreted the message with a latitude of rejection. And of course, vice versa, high source credibility leads to a latitude of acceptance. And overall, it was found that source credibility actually did affect a person's latitude of acceptance, rejection, and non-commitment. So, another study focused on the importance of understanding mixed audiences with various backgrounds, cultures, beliefs, experiences to change their attitudes successfully. So, it allowed for students to learn about social judgment theory by having them form an opinion on a topic and then try to argue for either a latitude of acceptance, rejection, and non-commitment, whether that matched with their opinion or not. And after the activity, there was a debriefing on how major anchor points of an audience could possibly affect message persuadability, and how students curate messages to conform better to the audience's current latitudes. This next study on formative research focuses on how college students and social norms, specifically how to reduce high-risk consumption of alcohol among college students. So social norms have been implemented on college campuses to reduce drinking, drug use, and or other harmful behaviors by communicating healthy lifestyles and behaviors to the majority of attending students. Findings of the study through surveys and formative research concluded that as drinking patterns declined, there was an opportunity to adjust the quantitative threshold of normative figures in messages in order to shift students' perceptions. So basically just reshaping the message to what students are looking for in that moment. This next study actually focuses on selfies and explores how message interpretations differ when selfies are included or excluded from Facebook status updates. So researchers asked participants to evaluate different Facebook posts that varied in intimacy, valence, and if the post included a selfie. And then findings actually suggest that the inclusion of a selfie alters the interpretation of message intimacy, appropriateness, and perceived poster narcissism and social effectiveness. So this last experiment explored the effects of persuasive messages on attitude changes utilizing several different topics through questionnaires, scales, and confirmatory factor analysis. Now, it stated that as involvement increases, the latitudes of acceptance and non-commitment shrink, while the latitude of rejection increases, just as social judgment theory explains. So basically, the change in attitude should be more difficult to achieve for high involvement targets rather than low involvement targets. And researchers found that the original prediction about social judgment, that involvement instills resistance, was evident in some conditions, but not others. So social judgment theory allows a person to judge a statement or message based on their past experiences, and also based on the amount of ego involvement one has on the topic will actually force the idea into one's latitude of acceptance, rejection, or non-commitment. Although the way a message is communicated can change one's attitude toward a topic. For example, going to a presentation on mental health rather than just seeing a commercial about it on television. So we're going to get into the criteria, what our text talks about, and accuracy for social judgment theory means that a presenter must know where the audience stands on a position before trying to persuade them a different way. Practicality means the theory could technically be used in everyday life, but is more practically used in contexts where we actually want to persuade an audience and not just to persuade people into doing what we want all the time. So simplicity, its overall theory is quite easy to comprehend, the perception and evaluation of an idea by comparing it with current attitudes. But the major tenets like the latitudes, ego involvement, contrast and assimilation, and the boomerang effect can make it a little more complicated. And let's move on to consistency, which means social judgment theory, it's fairly consistent. High ego involvement means one leans towards the latitude of rejection with a new idea, and low ego involvement means one leans toward the latitude of acceptance or non-commitment with a new idea. Pretty simple. And then acuity. The theory focuses on how we can strategically shape messages to appeal to certain audiences based on their past experiences and their current attitude toward the subject. And then we can apply this social judgment theory to several different contexts, such as presentations, speeches, commercials, advertisements, campaigns, the list goes on. An understanding of the theory is super important for companies and individuals because it actually helps budget out how to spend or how much to spend on advertising and how much to spend on a certain topic to make it more effective. And the way the audience perceives a message will overall determine how they respond to it. So the audience's current attitude and ego involvement are important to determine before trying to persuade them in a different direction. But knowing this type of information will help design a calculated message that will most likely turn heads in a positive way. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a little something about social judgment theory.